The smell of fresh bread and simmering curry still haunts my dreams, but not in the way you might think. Those aromas once brought me joy, filling my small kitchen where I first learned to cook from my mother-in-law, Kamala. Now, at 72, those same scents remind me of betrayal so deep it nearly broke my spirit. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how a simple plate of food led me to reclaim everything I had lost. My name is Shanti Devi, and this is the story of how my own flesh and blood turned his back on me, and how I turned the tables on him in ways he never saw coming. It was a Tuesday evening in March when my world came crashing down. The winter chill had just begun to lift from our small town of Meerut, and I had been living in my son Mohan's house for 3 months. 3 months of being treated like an unwanted guest in what was supposed to be my sanctuary. You see, my husband, Rajesh, had passed away the previous December, leaving me with nothing but memories and a small savings account that barely covered his funeral expenses. For 45 years, I had been a devoted wife, never working outside the home, dedicating my entire existence to my family. When Rajesh died, I discovered the harsh reality that I had no legal claim to our ancestral home. It had been registered in my brother-in-law's name decades ago, due to some family dispute I was never privy to. Mohan, my only child, had reluctantly agreed to let me stay with him and his wife, Priya. "It's temporary, Ma," he had said, not meeting my eyes, "until we figure something out." Priya made her displeasure known from day one. She would make elaborate meals for her family while leaving a single chapati and some leftover dal for me. When I tried to help in the kitchen, the place where I had found solace throughout my adult life, she would shoo me away like a bothersome fly. "You don't know how to use modern appliances, Mummy Ji," she would say with false sweetness. "Please rest. You've done enough in your life." But that Tuesday evening was different. I hadn't eaten since the previous night's meager portion. My stomach was cramping with hunger, and my diabetes medication was making me dizzy. I gathered all my courage and walked to the dining room where Mohan sat eating butter chicken and fresh naan. "Beta," I said softly, using the endearing term I had called him since birth. "Could I have some food? I haven't eaten today." Mohan didn't even look up from his plate. He continued chewing as if I hadn't spoken. Priya appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "Mummy Ji, you know we have a routine," she said coldly. "Dinner is at 8 for the family. You can eat the leftovers later." "But I'm very hungry," I pleaded, my voice barely a whisper, "and it's already 9 o'clock. That's when my son whom I had carried for 9 months, whom I had nursed through countless illnesses, whom I had sacrificed everything for, looked up at me with eyes as cold as winter stones. "Ma, you need to understand something," he said, setting down his fork. "This is not your house. We've been feeding you and giving you shelter out of duty, but don't mistake our kindness for obligation. If you can't wait for food like a grateful guest should, maybe you need to reconsider your living arrangements." The room fell silent except for the ticking of the wall clock. I felt something break inside my chest, not just my heart, but my very soul. This was the child I had walked miles to take to school when we couldn't afford a rickshaw. This was the boy I had gone without, meals to feed when money was tight. This was the young man whose college fees I had paid by selling my gold bangles, the only valuable possessions I owned. "Mohan," I whispered, "I am not a guest. I am your mother. And I am not obligated to feed you every time you demand it," he replied, returning to his meal. "Learn some gratitude." That night, I lay on the thin mattress in the tiny storage room they had given me, staring at the ceiling and making a decision that would change all our lives forever. I had been keeping a secret from my son, a secret that even my late husband didn't know about. It was time to use it. You see, 28 years ago, when Mohan was just finishing his engineering degree, I had done something that seemed insignificant at the time. My neighbor, Shanti Devi, not to be confused with my mother-in-law, was in desperate need of money. Her husband had suffered a stroke, and she needed funds for his treatment. She owned a small plot of commercial land in the heart of Meerut's market area, inherited from her father. "Shanti," she had begged me, "I need 50,000 rupees urgently. I'll sell you this land for that amount. I know it's worth more, but I trust you. You can buy it back from me later when I'm in better shape financially." I had recently received that exact amount as my share from the sale of my father's house. Without telling Rajesh, thinking it was a temporary arrangement to help a friend, I bought the land. But Kamala's husband never recovered, and she eventually moved to Haridwar to live with her daughter. She never asked for the land back, and over time, I forgot about it completely. Last month, while sorting through my old documents, I had discovered the property papers. Out of curiosity, I had asked a local property dealer about its current value. The number he quoted left me speechless: 12 lakh rupees. The small plot had become prime commercial real estate. But here's the twist that even I didn't know, until that humiliating Tuesday night. Unable to sleep, I decided to take a walk in the market area to see this land I owned. What I found there made my legs give out from under me. There, on my land, stood Mohan's kitchen, a thriving restaurant that my son had opened 2 years ago. The same son who claimed he could barely afford to feed me was running a successful business on property that belonged to me. The property he had never asked about, never mentioned, probably assumed I was too old and ignorant to understand. I sat on a nearby bench, watching customers flow in and out of the restaurant built on my land. The irony was suffocating. My son had refused to feed me while literally making money from my property to feed hundreds of strangers. The next morning, I took a rickshaw to the sub-registrar's office. The elderly clerk, Ram Prasad, was kind enough to help me understand the documents. Yes, the land was registered in my name. Yes, the restaurant was built without any lease agreement or legal permission from me. And yes, I had every right to take action. "Madam," Ram Prasad said gently, "your son may not even know this is your land. Perhaps you should talk to him first." I laughed bitterly. "Beta, my son doesn't think I'm smart enough to understand property matters. He's about to learn otherwise." That evening, I returned to the house and found Mohan in his room, counting cash, likely the day's earnings from the restaurant. I knocked on his door. "Mohan, we need to talk." He looked annoyed. "Ma, I'm busy. Can't this wait?" "It's about the restaurant." His head snapped up, but his expression remained guarded. "What about it?" I pulled out the property documents and placed them on his desk. "Did you know that the land your restaurant sits on belongs to me?" The color drained from his face. He picked up the papers with trembling hands, studying them carefully. I watched as the realization dawned on him. The dates, the signatures, the official seals. All authentic, all legal, all pointing to one undeniable truth. "Ma, this can't be right," he stammered. "This land was empty when I bought it from the developer." He showed me all the clearances. "The developer didn't own it, Beta. I did. For 28 years I've owned it. And for 2 years you've been running your business on my property without my permission, without paying me rent, while telling me you can barely afford to feed me." The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Priya appeared in the doorway, having heard our conversation. "This is some mistake," she said quickly. "Mummiji, you must have been cheated. These papers are probably fake." I turned to look at her with new eyes. "Beta, tomorrow we'll go to the registrar's office together. You can verify these documents yourself. But tonight, I want to make something very clear. The land is mine, which means the restaurant is built on my property illegally. I could have you evicted tomorrow if I wanted to." Mohan's business instincts kicked in. Ma, please, let's discuss this rationally. If the land is really yours, we can work something out. I'll pay you rent. We can formalize everything. Now you want to discuss things rationally? I asked quietly. When yesterday you couldn't even spare me a plate of food? The next few days were a whirlwind of legal consultations, document verifications, and family drama. The property papers were indeed authentic. The restaurant was indeed built on my land without my permission, and I indeed had the legal right to shut it down immediately. But I didn't want to destroy my son's business. Despite everything, I still loved him. What I wanted was something far more valuable than revenge. I wanted respect, dignity, and acknowledgement of my worth. I called a family meeting. Mohan, Priya, and I sat in the living room where just days ago I had been refused food. I've consulted with Advocate Sharma, I began. He's explained my legal options. I can file a case for illegal occupation and have the restaurant sealed. I can demand damages for 2 years of unauthorized use. Or, I paused, watching their anxious faces. We can come to a family arrangement. What kind of arrangement? Mohan asked carefully. First, I want to be made a 50% partner in the restaurant business. The land is mine, so I deserve equal ownership in the business built on it. Priya started to protest, but Mohan silenced her with a look. Second, I want to be actively involved in running the restaurant. I've been cooking for over 50 years. I know food better than anyone in this family. I want to contribute to the menu, oversee the kitchen operations, and have a say in business decisions. Ma, you don't understand the restaurant business, Mohan said weakly. I understand food, and I understand people. Your restaurant serves basic North Indian dishes to office workers and families. I can teach your cooks recipes that have been in our family for generations. I can make your restaurant special, not just another dhaba. And third, Priya asked reluctantly, I want to move out of this house. I'll use my share of the restaurant profits to rent a small apartment near the business. I want my independence back, my dignity back. I don't want to live where I'm seen as a burden. The room was quiet for a long moment. Finally, Mohan spoke. And if we agree to these terms, then we formalize everything legally. You get to keep running the restaurant, but as my partner, not as someone doing me a favor. We both benefit, and more importantly, we both respect each other. It took 2 weeks of negotiations, legal paperwork, and family discussions. Advocate Sharma helped us draft a partnership agreement that protected everyone's interests. Mohan retained operational control of the restaurant, but I became the official co-owner with equal profit sharing. The transformation began immediately. I moved into a comfortable 2-bedroom apartment just 5 minutes from the restaurant. For the first time in months, I had my own kitchen, my own space, my own dignity. At the restaurant, I started slowly. The existing cooks were skeptical of this elderly woman who wanted to change their routines. But when I prepared my special mutton curry, the recipe my mother-in-law Kamala had taught me decades ago, and served it to our regular customers, the response was overwhelming. Auntie G, this tastes like my grandmother's cooking, one customer told me with tears in his eyes. Word spread quickly. Within a month, people were coming specifically for Shanti Ma's special dishes. I introduced forgotten recipes, slow-cooked rajma that simmered for hours, handmade pasta and spiced tomato gravy, crispy pakoras with 3 different chutneys, and desserts that reminded people of their childhood. The restaurant's revenue increased by 40% in the first quarter after I joined. Mohan was shocked by the transformation. More importantly, he began to see me differently. Not as a burden or an obligation, but as a valuable partner whose experience and skills were assets to the business. One evening, 6 months after that humiliating night when I was refused food, Mohan came to my apartment. He looked nervous, fidgeting with his kama, I want to apologize," he said quietly. "I was wrong. About everything. The way I treated you. The things I said. The way I made you feel unwanted in your own son's house." I served him tea in my own cups in my own home, as an equal, not as a dependent. "Beta, we both made mistakes. I should have told you about the land from the beginning. You should have treated me with more respect. But what matters is what we do now." "I've learned so much from watching you at the restaurant," he continued. "Your dedication, your passion for cooking, the way customers respond to you. I never realized how much knowledge and experience you have." "People think that when you get old, you become useless," I said. "But age brings wisdom, experience, skills that young people don't have. The problem is when families stop seeing the value in their elders." Today, 2 years later, Mohan's kitchen has expanded to 3 locations. I'm actively involved in all of them, training cooks, developing new menu items, and ensuring quality. My special thali has become so popular that we often have waiting lists on weekends. But the most precious change isn't in business numbers. It's in relationships. Mohan visits me regularly, not out of duty but out of genuine affection. We discuss business plans, share meals together, and most importantly, he listens to me with respect. Priya took longer to come around, but even she now seeks my advice on cooking and family matters. Last month, she asked me to teach her my special biryani recipe for their wedding anniversary dinner. The storage room in their house has been converted into a proper guest room, and they often invite me for family dinners. The difference is that now I'm invited as an honored guest, not tolerated as a burden. I've also reconnected with old friends, joined a senior citizens group, and started teaching cooking classes twice a week. The woman who once felt invisible and worthless now has a full, meaningful life. Sometimes I think about that Tuesday night when I was refused food. If Mohan had simply given me a plate from his dinner, none of this would have happened. I would have continued living as a dependent. He would have continued taking advantage of my land, and both of us would have missed out on this beautiful partnership we've built. The irony isn't lost on me. My son refused to feed me, so I took back the restaurant he managed on my land. But in the process, we both discovered something more valuable than property or money. We discovered respect, partnership, and the true meaning of family. Last week, a young woman came to the restaurant with her elderly mother-in-law. The older woman looked frail and sad, picking at her food while the younger woman chatted on her phone, ignoring her completely. It reminded me so much of my own situation 2 years ago. I approached their table and struck up a conversation with the elderly woman. Her name was Sushma, and her story was heartbreakingly familiar. Widowed, dependent on her son's family, feeling invisible and unwanted. "Beta," I told her quietly, "you are not worthless. You have value, experience, and wisdom. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise." I gave her my phone number and invited her to visit the restaurant anytime. Sometimes the most important thing we can do for others is show them that their lives still have meaning and purpose. The young daughter-in-law overheard our conversation and looked embarrassed. Good. Sometimes people need to be uncomfortable to recognize their behavior. As I write this story, I'm sitting in my own apartment, planning new menu items for next month. Tomorrow I'll spend the day at the restaurant, working alongside my son as an equal partner. The smell of fresh bread and simmering curry no longer haunts my dreams. It fills them with joy and purpose. The woman who once begged for a plate of food now feeds hundreds of people daily. The mother who was seen as a burden is now a successful businesswoman. The widow who felt forgotten has built a new life filled with respect and achievement. People often ask me if I'm angry about those months of humiliation, about being treated so poorly by my own family. The truth is, I'm grateful. If I hadn't been pushed to my breaking point, I never would have discovered my own strength. I never would have reclaimed my property, built a business, or demanded the respect I deserved. Sometimes life's worst moments lead to its greatest transformations. My son refused to feed me, thinking he held all the power in our relationship. He learned that real power doesn't come from money or control. It comes from respect, partnership, and recognizing the value in every person, regardless of their age. And I learned that it's never too late to start over, to demand better treatment, to build a new life. At 74, I'm not winding down. I'm just getting started. The next time someone tries to make you feel small, invisible, or worthless, remember my story. Remember that you have value, you have rights, and you deserve respect. Don't accept less than your worth, even from family, especially from family. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is take back what was always yours, your dignity, your worth, and your place in the world.